Alan Wake's American Nightmare is a canonical spin-off to the 2010 cult classic Alan Wake that feels more like a ReZero fanfiction, even the more culturally dynamic ones sometimes. What do I mean by this? Well, firstly, the game takes place in a time loop where Alan is trying to find a way through it that doesn't result in his death at the hands of Evil Alan, aka Mr. Scratch, or the demise of the waifus he's met along the way. It also tries to match the vibe of the original by attempting to recreate some of the more zany moments from the source material, but those recreations never really hit right because of how contrived they feel, like when they tried to emulate the part of the original game where you fight off a degenerate horde of seasonal isekai garbage eaters on a concert stage using the power of lights, bullets, and hype. The first time they tried to do this, it didn't really bug me all that much because it felt like the game was saying, "Hey there bud, you remember that part with the concert stage, don't ya? That was pretty cool, right?" And I was like, "Yeah bro, I remember, that part was pretty cool." But when it happened the second time, it started to come off more like, "Yo bud, let me drop a fucking jam real quick. Do you remember that part of the concert stage last game? Are you fucking pogging yet, bro?"
I'll take care of your wife and your life!
But alas, I twas not pogging, and was instead annoyed because of how the devs, Remedy Games, appear to have forgotten that big tonal shifts need setup to come off as organic instead of feeling random and forced. The original game stuck the landing on the tonal shift by taking the time to build up the characters who own the farm where the stage is located, making it so when you reach the farm you're able to fully accept the presence of the concert stage with a fully maintained light show and sound equipment because you're aware of just how eccentric and based they are. Yeah! So when Alan's friend starts up the music and light show, it feels like something that could happen within the context of the game, and it just fits, making it feel organic, which in turn makes it easier to get into it and bask in the flood of dopamine. But in American Nightmare there is no build-up, no justification for tone shift. There's just random bouts of jarring high-energy tunes that feel as though they only exist to remind me of the original Alan Wake and how naturally it can mix in so many different vibes. And like a nail driven into my skull, I am pointedly reminded that instead of making a sequel, Remedy made a 4-hour-long spin-off that is constantly trying to emotionally tantalize me into surrendering myself to a nostalgia boner. And god damn it, I might have low standards sometimes, and may or may not sheepishly indulge in the occasional bit of trashy fan service, but when it comes to something like Alan Wake, I want to feel classy and respected. Oh yeah, remember when I said this game also sometimes veers off into the more culturally dynamic fanfiction wilds? Well, it implies that Mr. Scratch had an interaction with Waifu 3 just prior to the events of the game, which would include these tags if you were to find a depiction of it on your favorite font of mindless self-indulgence.
Remember when you were here before, and you kissed me, and then everything got all dark? That was the best.
Listen, this is very important. Where did I go? Can you tell me that?
Baby, you don't need to go anywhere. You're here now, and you're in my head. You should be in me. You should touch me again.
Not with a 10-foot pole, lady.
I mean, I guess it's possible to interpret the implications to be only suggestive and nothing but a big ol' smooch, some sinister hand-holding, and a little moral tampering went down. But I find that to be a bit of a stretch because of how hard the dialogue goes.
You should sit down or something. Try to stay calm.
I don't want to be calm. I want to be nasty. I want to be nasty with you.
Yeah, okay.
You could do anything you want. You can use my...
Let's not even go there.
I think I'm just gonna take the hint and interpret this in the most degenerate way possible. Yeah. Honestly though, this whole thing doesn't really bother me all that much. I just thought it was kinda distracting and felt a bit tacked on. And I'm not hating on Mr. Scratch, in fact I kinda like him. He's a charismatic villain and has this Patrick Bateman thing going on, and I kinda dig that. But it felt like the devs wanted to make him more evil on top of him being an unrepentant serial killer, but they couldn't figure out how and busted out a crystal ball to try divining a way to make him the most evil Alan he could possibly be, and ended up being shown a couple episodes of isekai anime.
奴隷に手を出すことに心理的葛藤をお持ちの方が一定数おられるのです。
奴隷が裏切ることはないのか？
ございません。
I don't know, I kinda wish the devs had been a bit more creative, because 9 out of 10 times adding rapey factor into a story without it contributing something meaningful to the plot feels boring at best and cringy at worst. Hey, this looks kinda fun. Oh shit, White Fox did this? I loved Katana Guitar in Steins Gate. This is gonna be awesome. If I'm being totally honest, the premise sounded kinda simple, but I bet there's some kinda cool twist to it.
All the goblins are dudes.
Okay. Does that mean they're like a virus and they rapidly reproduce a
They rape everyone
Why are you talking like that?
with over 9,000 dicks.
Oh. Speaking of bullshit, there's only 3 levels in this game. The town of Night Springs, an observatory, and a drive-in, and you play through each of them 3 times in almost the same way every time because of the time loop. This repetition made a lot of the game feel like a chore I had to slog through in the hopes of being rewarded with something new, and while it never quite reached the brain-damaging levels of repetition found in the story structure of many Marvel movies, this made the gameplay loop more equivalent to dailies in Genshin. The game holds up pretty well in the looks department though, making the repetitive rambling through the 3 levels more bearable. As a quick disclaimer, I feel that as long as the graphics aren't too shit, the stylistic expression creating the game's aesthetic is more important of the two. So it's entirely possible American Nightmare is a graphical mess to those who might inspect such things with high levels of autistic intensity. But regardless of where one might be on the spectrum, it's undeniable this game does a good job at establishing visual ambience. For instance, Night Springs radiates a sense of isolation and Americana manufactured in the uncanny valley, giving it a decidedly Twilight Zone feel, a feel which extends to the other areas as well. It's clear a lot of thought was put into nailing the aesthetic, and I think that's pretty darn swell. And if you've seen my video about the original game, you'll probably be able to guess that I also think the combat here is the bee's knees. Movement is responsive, the guns feel good, the weapons and tools from the original game have been rebalanced, and the jukes add a frantic aspect to the encounters, not unlike a miner fleeing from a professional Smash player. It all comes together in a way that makes every fight an engaging experience, and I honestly can't praise it enough. Except for some of the new weapons. Those are overpowered abominations and make the combat in the campaign a bit of a joke. But that's okay. Story mode is only about 4 hours long anyway, so breezing through it is not a big deal, because you won't miss much. You'll still be able to see everything Mr. Scratch has to offer, and bear witness to the unsatisfying ending in which the game sits on the fence about the events of American Nightmare being canon or just a dream. And you know what? Even that's okay, as this game's got an arcade-style horde mode on par with the mercenary mode from the Resident Evil games. I mentioned this because just like in those Resident Evil games, I had a blast in arcade mode and ended up playing it far more than the campaign. Also, the overpowered weapons don't hurt this mode due to the scaling difficulty and the overall goal of racing against the clock to get as high of a score as possible. So I know I can't say story mode is bad in an objective sense because I'm sure some people will like it, but I can confidently say that if you enjoy extremely well-made combat and watching numbers go up like me, this mode will justify playing the game regardless of how you feel about the campaign. So is Alan Wake's American Nightmare good? Yeah. Alright, thanks for watching.
So dance while I put you in a trance.